What's going on, passionate Pokemon players? I am Ryan, and we're here for another episode of the Hawks Pokemon Nest. Today we're moving way out of the OGs for the most part, and we're going into a newer Pokemon for our Rogue deck overviews. We are actually going to do Spidops. So we have a Spidops deck, but it does have a catch here. One of those catches is that it does have Ariados and Spinarak, which are part of the second 250. So we're not completely out. It's just that our Spidops is the main attacker, and then we have Spinarak and more so Ariados as the second one. So what we're going to do, as usual, overview all of the cards in the deck and why I chose them. We'll talk about the strategy, how to play the deck, what the strengths and weaknesses of it are, and then some other cards that we may want to consider swapping into this deck. Before we get into it though, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you can join the Hawks Nest. We are a growing flock. Probably made you not want to join. But anyway, we are a growing flock of passionate people who are just seeking out peak performance. I seek out peak performance in terms of finding rogue decks. I can find peak performance, sure, and look at these meta lists and all that good stuff, and then just kind of go on winning streaks and all that, which I've done. But I find it helps me play better overall to get these crazy rogue decks out there, and it's more fun to me, and that's what really matters, to be passionate about it. I'm passionate about this, so I hope you all are too. So without further ado, let's get into the next section. Starting off with the Pokemon of the deck. This deck is built around Spidops EX, so we have 4 of them in the deck, of course. Now let's look at its ability Trap Territory, which your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost is 1 energy cost more. And then its ability down there, Wire Hang. This attack does 30 more damage for each of your opponent's active retreat cost energy, right? Basically, that's what it's going to do. So right off the bat, it's going to do 90, but with its ability, it's already doing 1 more. So even if their retreat cost was 0, we're starting off with it doing 120 damage for 2 energies, which on the surface is not a lot, right? But we're going to see as we go through that we're trying to get tons of increases in the retreat cost so that we can deal big damage. And, for example, every single Spidops we have, this ability does stack. So if we have a Spidops inactive, 3 Spidops on the bench, that's 4 total Spidops for a total of 120 more damage. So now we're doing 210. Not too bad, right? Then we have the Tarountula, 40 HP, so he's super squishy. You want to get this bad boy evolved as quickly as possible. The reason I like this one, none of them really give you more HP or more retreat, but I do like the String Haul, which if head switch your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot, can sometimes help you get out of a bind when you've got, maybe you're not ready to evolve yet, or you're kind of in between Pokemon. So it's a solid ability to get you through there. Now, next up, we have Spinarak. Again, I don't think it's super important in terms of which one you go with on the Spinarak. You don't want him inactive. You don't want him attacking. I don't think there's any of them that are going to go up to 70 HP from what I remember. I went ahead and went with the Pokemon Go one, kind of more so because I like the art on the card. It's funny. But then we do have Poison Sting for 10, which flip a coin if heads or active Pokemon is poisoned. Now, I went with 4 Tarountula and 4 Spidops EX, but I'm going with 3 Spinarak and then 3 Ariados. I don't quite have room for 4, don't quite need 4. These are kind of backup attackers. You do want to use them in a pinch, and here's the reason why. Big net, so your opponent's active evolution Pokemon's retreat cost is 1 more, right? So you throw this guy on your bench, and then if you don't have your other Tarountulas ready, or you ran out of them, if it's an evolution Pokemon, that's going to add on to your Spidops' ability. And check this out, similar to Spidops, this is kind of like the Dollar Tree Spidops is Ariados right now. He's got 90 HP, so he's going to get KO'd in 1 hit, really. But String Bind, the attack does 30 more damage for each of your opponent's active retreat cost. Basically the same thing. Does only have a base of 10, but in a pinch we're able to get that off, especially if we've got a bunch of Spidops out there. Maybe they're evolution Pokemon, so that's going to help you out there. So this is a good move. Sometimes you're going to be able to trade 2 for 1. I might be able to knock out an EX or something like that with this if I've got enough. And then next turn they're going to knock him out, but it's still a 2 for 1 switch. And a lot of times 2 can help you if, again, you don't quite have your next Spidops ready to go. This one is only a 1 cost energy, so that's really good, really solid, right? So the last Pokemon here, we don't have a lot, is just going to be our Radiant Greninja. This is our draw engine. Nothing much to be said about that. Concealed cards, we're going to be discarding that energy. We're not going to use Moonlight Shuriken because we don't have any water energy. Next up is our supporters. We have, of course, Buddy Poffin as our first one. We've got 3 of them in there. That way we're easily able to get our Tarountulas and our Spinaraks out there. Then we have 4 Bug Catching Set, another kind of critical card here. Looking at the top 7, revealing 2 combination of Grass Energy or Grass Pokemon and putting them into our hand. So again, this is just going to help us pull energy and the Pokemon we need, especially the evolutions. Poffins aren't going to allow us to do that, but we can grab the Ariadoses and the Spinaraks a lot of times and make sure we have enough energy in hand to use concealed cards and attach for a turn. Earthen Vessel, another way of just getting energies. So I'm going with, in fact, down there, it's times 4 of these. We've got 4 Earthen Vessels in here. We want to get energy in hand and keep them in hand. Also helps us with deck thing. A-Spec. This one was a late addition to me. I did end up really liking it. I had Prime Catcher in there for a while, so still a little bit on the fence if this one's better, but the reason I like this is we get search for up to 3 stage 1 Pokemon, reveal, put them in your hand. We're going to really be flooding our bench quickly with Spinarak and our Ariados, so to be able to pull all 3 that we need, it's not only going to thin out our deck with getting those in hand, but also getting them in hand, right? We want those in hand so that we can evolve them quickly. Each evolution we have is going to increase our opponent's retreat cost and thus increase energy, especially with Spidops. You know, with Spinarak it is, the Ariados, it is only the evolution Pokemon, but right now in the meta we are seeing a lot of evolutions. We're seeing a ton of stage 1, stage 2 EXs in there, so usually it's going to run. Nest Ball, I'm just running 2 Nest Balls, help us be able to get our Radiant Greninja out there because we can't get him with our Bug Catching set. We can't get him with Poffin, so I'm going to run 2 of them. If we don't get them, kind of sucks, but whatever. Night Stretcher, we need 4 Night Stretchers in there. I do run 4 of them because we're using concealed cards every turn, so we want to be able to pull our energies back. And sometimes our opponents are going to just target our bench and target our pre-evolutions and get them taken out. So this is going to help us be able to pull them back if needed. Ultra Ball, I've got 3 of those bad boys in there because we always want to be able to pull what we need with that. Calamitous Wasteland, now here's another one to increase retreat cost, and this one is going to be for basic non-ground or fighting type in play, right? So you don't see a ton of ground Pokemon right now, so this should really pull off, and it'll kind of offset a little bit if your opponent has the evolution, the basic Pokemon for our Ariados, because he's only increasing his our evolution. So it kind of gives you a little bit of the best of both worlds. Also helps get rid of your opponent's stadiums too. That's always a plus, if nothing else. I've got 3 of them. Boss's Orders. How many do we have? Not that many. I only have 2 of them, which I actually didn't. I don't think I even marked what I have here, but yeah, only 2 because can't really fit anymore. This is one I went back and forth a lot with. I started with Gardenia's Vigor. I removed it. I've tried out Iono and Arvin and things like that. Overall, I like the Gardenia's Vigor. does only allow us to draw 2, but we're able to get those energies attached and make sure that we really always are able to get an attacker ready to go. Spidops EX does only need 2 energy, but sometimes he can be a little bit squishy. We want to make sure that we can get him out there and also have some flexibility in terms of, do I want to play my next Spidops, or do I want to maybe throw out a Ariados? Solid. Kieran, another one. I've been like kind of obsessed with Kieran lately as a supporter card. I think it really works here, like in many of my decks, because sometimes we need that 30 extra. I find myself using it for this more than switching, because you know, the damage is based on retreat cost, and sometimes we're just that 30 damage or less short, so it's a nice way to just give us a boost in damage. I'm only playing 2 of them. I don't find myself to have room for any more than that. Gravity Gemstone. Here's another key card to the deck. I only play 3. It's another one where I wish I could get 4 in there. Just kind of can't make it happen. I don't know what I would eliminate to put it. But as we see, as long as the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot, the retreat cost of both active Pokemon is 1 more. So it's just another way of getting retreat cost up on your opponent. Let's say you've got this, and I mean just a Spidops in the active spot with this attached gives it 2 extra retreat cost, which is going to bring them up, give you a 60 damage boost. You know, you've got a couple on bench and your Calamitous Wasteland depending on, and we're in a pretty good spot. Energy, I've got 10. Nothing more to say about that. All grass. The strategy is about as straightforward as it comes, and a lot of them are, but this one is even more. Load up our bench, evolve to increase retreat cost, get your Stadium and Tool to increase retreat cost even more, and then just thin out our deck so that we can get rid of what we don't need, and just attack. Very straightforward. Very straightforward on this one. Strengths and weaknesses of this deck: it's low energy for potentially big damage, especially late in game when it's really going to continue to ramp up, as long as you're able to keep your bench safe, which we'll talk about in a second. Solid draw power, because really we're pulling a lot of things that just help us thin the deck, like our bug catching kit is really going to help us thin out the deck to get what we need, Ultra Balls and things like that. And then of course we have our Radiant Greninja, so it does have solid. It doesn't have great draw power, so it's kind of on the fence if you want to call it a strength, but I think it's good enough. I found that I don't have too much trouble with draw power on that. It's also flexible with the Ariados. You have a 1 prize attacker. It is usually going to get knocked out the next turn, but you can kind of think about it. Sometimes you'll be retreating your Spidops that's about to get knocked out, throw in that Ariados and finish the job. So it's a little bit flexible with that, so you kind of have some options in attackers. And then right now we're still seeing a ton of Shadow and Dark Pokemon out there, and some of them are starting to see different than grass weakness, but there's still a ton. You're going to do great damage, especially against decks like Charizard and things like that. So really good. Good right now in the meta. Kind of matchup based. You know, there are some matchups that are just not going to be good. Like this one doesn't do too well up against those Dragapult EX decks, which are another kind of meta deck. It's going to really struggle against those because of that. And let's just go right into the weaknesses, right? I mean, the biggest thing is there's no bench protection. In this one, I'm always really stubborn about adding Manaphy's and other bench, but this is one where it just really takes away from the deck. To waste a bench spot on a Manaphy is going to take away from us adding damage with our Spidops and our Ariados' ability. So it does suck. So you're really going to want to focus on getting these guys evolved as quickly as possible so they can at least take a hit. You're still in trouble even with an Ariados because it only has 90 HP. So you're going to have a hard time there. It's only going to be able to take 2 hits from the Dragapult's bench hit, but you know, you got to do what you got to do, and these things happen. It does need a lot of setup to deal big damage. You need a full bench. Like potentially if you have an evolution Pokemon and you've got 4 of your 5 spots, because you are going to want your Greninja as 1, you know, we can be dealing something like you know, 40 more, 120 from our bench, and then another 150 or so. So we could be hitting for about 240 is about the max we can get to. If we get a Kieran in there, we may be able to hit for 270 or so. So it does big damage for 2 energy, but it's not like gigantic damage like some of these Pokemon now are hitting for. So far from meta, but a pretty fun deck. I think with that Gravity Gemstone, it makes it at least go from there. I did mention, you know, that it does have solid draw power as a strength, but really at the end of the day, it's mid. It's kind of a mid draw power in that regards. Other cards to think about: Radiant Venusaur over the Radiant Greninja. The benefits of that one is you're able to pull the Radiant Venusaur with your bug catching kit. The downsides are pretty huge though, which is why I swapped him out. Number one, his retreat cost is 3. So your opponent is probably going to try to trap him in the active spot. I mean, you are able to potentially attack if you attach 3 energies, and it's going to get him burned, confused, and poisoned while dealing 90. But it's really not worth the investment of throwing those energies on. It's a much better investment to put the energies on your others. And then his ability does let you draw up to 4 in hand. But when you have that bug catching kit, a lot of times you're going to be beyond 4 cards, so this one's something to think about if you can keep your hand down and keep him up there, but I find that Greninja works a lot better. So that's really the only other Pokemon I'd consider. You know, the Ariados and Spidops work really well with each other, and they kind of need to be the only ones on your bench, so that's why we don't really have any others. We do have some others to think about in terms of trainers though. The Kieran is one, maybe we just want to do a switch, you know, maybe because it does kind of, it can be a challenge that you're using your supporter of the turn just to do a switch sometimes, so you may want to think about just going with the switch card in general. Roseanne's backup is one that I always throw in there, and this one could work really well because we are relying on those Gravity Gemstone tools and potentially even the stadium. So this one is a solid one to think about if we want to really be able to recycle the tools in the stadiums. One I didn't include here too, but Super Rod is also one that you may want to think about, because we can just get up to 3 energies in deck and potentially just pull them back out with the bug catching kit or the Earthen Vessel especially. So Super Rod is probably one that we should consider. Didn't put it on the list, but something you may want to think about. Secret Box, another good supporter card that we might want to think about, because we search for a tool supporter in Stadium. So we're going to be able to get Gravity Gemstone, we're going to be able to get the Calamitous Wasteland, and then any supporter card. Maybe you're going to go ahead and pull, you're going to pull out Gardenia's Vigor, because we can just go ahead and attach 2 energies or whatever, or you know, whatever else we need. Maybe it's a bosses, but this is good. The thing is, the discarding 3 other cards from your hand. There's not a ton of flexibility that we have with discarding, which is why I don't really like discarding 3. But you know, you may try it out. You might, if you discard energies, then you know you can get them back with the Night Stretcher, or maybe you don't even need all of them. Iono's another one to think about. I did play with Iono for a while, but just no room for it. This is another card that's really tough to keep in there. Lucia's Appeal is one that I might think about if you want to risk it and go against someone who's just playing basics, or at least has some basics instead of a bosses. We can swap one of their bench basics to the active, and then they're confused. Arven is another one that I have in the earlier iterations of this deck, and the reason being is that we're able to pull out the tool to get the Gravity Gemstone attached. I just find that, you know, a lot of times I'm pulling out that tool and I'm pulling out maybe an Earthen Vessel, but I'm not really getting everything I need. I think the Gardenia's Vigor does a little bit better. Prime Catcher, always one to consider. I had this one in here actually before I swapped for these Hyper Aroma. So It's a good one. It gives you an extra switch because we are only playing 2 Kieran, and then another boss's orders because we're also only playing 2 bosses. So this one is probably the one of all of these that I consider the most in here. And then energy retrieval is one I might think about over the night stretcher because we get the 2 basics directly back to hand. Basic energies. The problem is you're locked into just energies. Sometimes you are going to need to pull some of the Pokemon back rather than an energy with the night stretcher. But that is pretty much it, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Hawks Pokemon Nest. What did you think about this deck? We've moved away in terms of featuring our old school Pokemon, and we got something that's a little bit more new this time, but hey, we didn't completely go away. We've got Spinarak and Ariados in here. So, solid deck in here. I think if you're ever going to play it, it seems like this is the best time to do so, considering we've got the Gravity Gemstone and we've got a lot of support, but then we also have some stuff that may be rotating out soon in this deck. I think the biggest thing is the Gardenia's Vigor. That one's going to go away, and we'd have to think about what else to go with. And I mean, I think everyone's going to have trouble with draw power unless we get a different Radiant Greninja coming out, which I feel like we might be getting, but I don't remember super well about that. But if you like what you saw, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you can join the Hawks Nest, a growing flock of feathered fellas and ladies and anything in between who just love to find our best and be our best. And that's what we're about. So if you're not ready to fly yet, though, just make sure you hit that like button so we can show back up in your algorithm, and leave a comment. What would you change about this deck? What did I miss? I feel like, to be honest, I feel like this deck is a card or 2 away from really going to the next level. So let me know. I'm sure there are some other lists out there. This is still considered a rogue deck, but I feel like there are probably others playing Spinarak or Ariados or Spidops out there. So let me know in the comments some other cards to consider in here. But until then, we will see you all next time.